Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am. On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, my guest, Edgar Krause, and I will be discussing Glam Slam from the Love Sexy album. Welcome back to the show, Edgar.
Hi, Jason.
Well, here we are, Love Sexy. It's that album that I think out of all of Prince's 80s records, Love Sexy seems to have kind of the reputation as maybe one of those I get it or I don't get it kind of records. Like, it doesn't have universal appeal, doesn't have universal praise from critics and fans alike, but there's a collection of those of us who really find Love Sexy to be an intriguing and value-added album to Prince's 80s discography, or his discography at whole. But then there's just other people who are like, I don't know, man, this isn't really for me. I don't really get into the God is love, love is God, spirituality angle. I mean, we all know that he kind of wrote and recorded this album fairly quickly, and maybe some of that can be identified as weaknesses in some of the lyrics. But what are your thoughts on Love Sexy in general? And if you don't mind sharing, like, I believe you've seen the Love Sexy tour, which yes. I think everybody would say is probably one of the better, most elaborate tours that Prince ever did. I'd love to hear your story on that.
Well, to start with the album, I'm one of those persons that love this album, and I would go as far as to saying that this is actually his best and most consistent album of the 1980s. It's not as popular as Purple Rain, of course, and it's not it's not my favorite album. That would be Around the World in a Day, and on other days it would be Parade. But this album as a whole, it tells a story. From the moment it starts with I Know until the last, when Positivity fades out, it tells a cohesive story, and I think that's one of the things that's missing in all of his other albums in the 1980s. There's always one song that he threw in last moment, which disturbs the flow of an album a bit. And like you said, this album was recorded in a very short time, and there was no time to throw in some last-minute additions. So this is probably the only album from the 1980s that tells a consistent story, and that's what I like about it. And yes, indeed, I saw the Love Sexy tour, and I must say that I didn't have the best seats in the house. I was 14 years old at the time, and I had to save some money to buy the cheapest seats available. It was all I could afford as a young boy. So it was in an open air stadium in Rotterdam, and I was all the way up at the top of the stadium. So the show was brilliant. It was a brilliant show, absolutely. But being that far back, and Prince didn't have any screens on the side of the stage, so it wasn't in the round as we saw on the famous Dortmund video, for instance. When I saw it, it was in a stadium setting. And he didn't have video screens on the side of the stage. So from where I was sitting, Prince was a tiny person, and he was even more tiny.
even more so.
yeah, absolutely. But I remember that show being amazing. I was at the show that Candy Dulfer did her first appearance with Prince. So and
cool.
from that moment on, well, she became one of the people that continued to work with him throughout the years. But it's strange that how the memory works. I was at that show August 19th, 1988, and then a few weeks later, the show from Dortmund, which I just mentioned, was on television, and the set list is almost identical. But when I was watching that show on television, it was like a completely different show than I saw. The open air setting was totally different. but it was and it still is an amazing show, and it worked so well, having that dark side and the light side within a story on stage. So but as a 14-year-old kid, I didn't see that. I just saw a magnificent rock show, and it was the second big concert I ever saw. The first one was the Sign of the Times tour a year previous. So those two became my benchmarks for concerts. So for a long time, every other artist I saw was disappointing because it wasn't as elaborate as Prince. But
so you're always like, oh, well, that was a good show, but it wasn't as good as Prince. Oh, that was okay. It wasn't as good as Prince, though.
Yeah. But it's always like the strange thing is that looking back, I didn't know that at the time, of course. I didn't see the best shows from that particular tour. In 1987, the show I went to was Marked with Rain. It was definitely the shortest show of the entire tour, but I thought it was amazing. And the show I saw in Rotterdam was also the shortest of the three shows he did that summer in the Netherlands. But I didn't know that at the time. So, and the people that saw multiple shows were from, whoa, we've seen better. And if you only saw one show, it was, well, amazing.
Right. You didn't have other ones to compare it against in the same tour.
No.
Yeah.
From 1990 on, like I said, I was 14 in 1988. And my parents wouldn't let me go to multiple shows, and I didn't have the funds to finance that. But from 1990 on, I was older and I had more money to spare. So that was the point that I started to go to multiple shows, one tour. But at this point, I just saw one show, and this one was amazing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, I wish I could have seen it live too. So even if it was the shortest and maybe least impressive show of the three that they played in the Netherlands that year, at least you got to go. At least you were there for one of them. Yes, you can say you were there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Prince and the band were tiny little specks on the stage because you're far away, but
absolutely,
you could hear everything just fine, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then marrying that up with the visuals from the Dortmund show that was aired, you're like, okay, I can make the connections now. What I heard versus what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, because it was an outdoor show, the thing that I remember most was the stage being still in the sunlight, because it was still when it started, it was pretty early still. So. So we didn't get the real visuals, the lighting, etc. We didn't get that up until probably around Anastasia within the set. That's when it started to get dark a little bit. Gotcha. So the first part of the show was more or less in broad daylight.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, very interesting. I'm glad you shared that. Always nice to talk to people who saw Prince live and during the era that I'm talking about and doing my podcast about. So
that was also the era that I really became a fan. You grow into it, and like I said, when you see these concerts, you get a connection with an artist, and in this case with Prince, and that it stays with you for life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, certainly it has stayed with you for life because you're here now 30 plus years later talking to me about Glam Slam. Yeah. Glam Slam is the third track on the album. It comes right after Alphabet Street and right before Anastasia, which I consider two of the strongest songs on the album. Mm-hmm. So Glam Slam is kind of wedged in the middle. It was released as the second single off the album. I believe that was across the entire world. I don't think it was just a U.S. thing. I think it was the second single in other markets, other countries as well.
Absolutely. And it was in July. It was a few weeks before the concert.
Yeah, July of 1988. Exactly. That's when it was released. So following on the heels of the top 10 success of Alphabet Street came Glam Slam. And Glam Slam was not a commercial success like Alphabet Street was. And even Alphabet Street was kind of disappointing from a chart perspective, from a sales perspective. It still did well, but it wasn't like a number one hit or even came close to number one. Glam Slam didn't even make the US Billboard Hot 100 at all, and it was only number 44 on the R&B charts, which is a pretty low showing because usually Prince did better on the R&B charts than on the pop charts, especially for some of these later album singles. maybe not like the big hits. I mean, you can't get any better than number one. Number one's number one. But like a song like this, only hitting number 44 on the R&B charts, kind of speaks to the general reaction to the song as being middling. Wasn't super well received in a lot of radio station formats. A thing like I found, I didn't know this, but I went to Prince Vault, so I have to cite Prince Vault for mentioning this, but I guess Prince had second thoughts about this song being released as the second single. I don't know what the source is for that, but according to Prince Vault, this is what is written there. And then he had to he wanted to pull it, like make a last minute decision, kind of like harkening back to his Black Album decision a year prior, like, nope, pull it, I don't want it. But in this case, it was too late. And so Glam Slam ultimately got that second single released. And I don't know why it was initially chosen to be the second single, and then he was thinking maybe not. I don't know if he had a different song in mind that he really wanted to push forth, and it just didn't happen for him. Not sure if you know any more about it than I do.
I don't know any. I didn't even know this. So this is interesting. And like you said, in the US it didn't do well. In Europe it didn't do as good as other songs from previous albums, but it still made it to number 15 in the general charts here in the Netherlands. So it's
not bad.
It's not bad, but it's definitely not as low as in the US.
Yeah, I mean, my memory. Well, I have no memory of this song, the video ever being played. So there's a music video. It's essentially Prince and the band on stage. It's not taken from. I don't understand it to be taken from the tour. It's a recording for the video, but it's on stage and there's a crowd around him. So I think it was either the crowd from an existing show or they brought people in. I'm not sure. I didn't do a whole lot of research on the video because this isn't a video podcast. No,
but I think it's the way I see the show. I think it's just a rehearsal. I'm not sure this, but it looks like it was filmed during rehearsals. Just in the US, and they just pulled in an audience and said, "Okay, gotcha. we need an audience for this," and those people were there.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be like a live video. There's a lot of those, like videos that are on stage live, but they're not really live. They're just, supposed to pretend to be live. What I find
most
interesting,
of Prince's early videos were like that.
Yeah, exactly. He has a lot of those in his career. What I find interesting about the video, cracks me up, is again, we've got Eric Leeds on stage playing an instrument that he doesn't normally play.
Oh, he's on the violin.
Yeah, he did that when the family on the Screams of Passion. Everybody who's familiar with that video kind of cracks up when they see Eric Leeds in the background pretending to pluck away at the bass guitar. But here he's got a violin, and he's striking the violin strings with his bow, and like, wait a second, that's not his instrument. So
and it doesn't make sense. They have a string orchestra right there, which is also in the video, and then next to the string orchestra there are Eric and Atlanta also playing violin. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. I think they again just wanted them in the video, and since there's no horns, just hold an instrument, man. Just hold an instrument. I don't know. Anyway, so another thing about Glam Slam that kind of transcends, and this is a word that he uses in the song, transcends the song itself, of course, is the phrase Glam Slam. We all know Glam Slam turned out to be the name that Prince chose to for his nightclubs that he opened up in the 90s, first in Minneapolis, and then there were offshoot Glam Slam clubs in Miami and Los Angeles and Tokyo.
Yeah.
They didn't make it out of the 90s. All of them were closed by the end of the decade. But there were, a handful of years there in the early to mid 90s where there were these Glam Slam nightclubs. And so obviously that was, pulled from this song. I mean, this song preceded the nightclubs, so it was the nightclubs were named after the song. So he liked this phrase, even though the song wasn't a success and there wasn't a lot of name recognition from people. Yeah. Like, oh wait, he didn't name it When Doves Cry, or he didn't name it the Purple Rain Club. He named it after a song that really wasn't all that popular in the United States. because I guess he just really liked the phrase. I don't know.
Yeah, and he also used the phrase in different songs. There's Glam Slam '89, which of 91, sorry,
91, yeah.
Glam Slam '91, which has nothing to do with this Glam Slam, but it is a Glam Slam. And there's this song Glam Slam Boogie, which he played later in the 1990s, which supposedly references the club, not the song. But so there you have two songs that also use the phrase Glam Slam, and there's Get Off. There's that's not Glam Slam, but at least it has the name Glam in it. Gangsta Glam was one of those Get Off remixes. So so he liked the glam.
He did. He liked this. And the thing, and then what I want to talk about next, Edgar, I think it's a good segue into this conversation, is like Glam Slam, the name, like what is its genesis? Where does it get its name? What are the different phrases that he's kind of using as the basis for this? I mean, there's so many different common phrases that are used in our vernacular today that everybody knows, that he kind of smushed together or took elements out of to create this 2-word phrase. Yeah. So, I mean, the one that I think most people think of, and it's really more about in the chorus when he says "Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am," that's got, most people assume or take that to be a takeoff of "Wham Bam, thank you, ma'am," the phrase that is used to kind of describe a quick sexual encounter, a quickie, so to speak. But there's that's the phrase itself. That does not just about Glam Slam. That's the whole, and when we get to the chorus, we'll talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But Glam Slam,
I have some ideas about that.
Throw some at me. Throw some at me, Edgar.
Now, you mentioned the "Wham Bam, thank you, ma'am" phrase, and we know that Prince went to see David Bowie in St. Paul in October 1987, a few weeks before he recorded Glam Slam, and Bowie uses the phrase "Wham Bam, thank you, ma'am" in his Suffragette City, and even though Bowie, I looked up the set list, didn't perform that song the night Prince was there, he might have been influenced by David Bowie by seeing that concert and inviting him to Paisley Park afterwards, and maybe diving into his discography a little bit and taking that line and making it his own.
Yeah, it's certainly possible.
One of the reasons I also believe there might be a Bowie link is in the video we just talked about. Prince is playing guitar with gloves on, which doesn't make sense. But he wears white gloves, and if you go see the Let's Dance video by David Bowie, he's also playing guitar wearing white gloves. Like I said, this is pure speculation, but I'm putting Prince and Bowie. I'm a huge Bowie fan as well. So if I can make connections, I try to make connections, and that might be it.
Well, here's the other thing to kind of maybe add some credence to your theory. So what would be what kind of genre of music would Bowie's music from the 70s most fit into?
Yeah, there you
Glam rock.
Glam rock. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, glam is, of course, short for the word glamorous. And I think, like, the way that it was meant to kind of be described as rock music with a theatrical element to it, like the elaborate costume designs and stage designs, makeup, putting makeup on, men using makeup to kind of highlight certain features or just to give themselves a more glamorous look. That was really starting to happen there in the 70s, and David Bowie, of course, was one of the pioneers of glam rock, along with others, of course. But so the connection there seems to be pretty strong. I mean, again, it's all speculation. We don't know this. No. The "Wham Bam, thank you, ma'am" phrase predates, of course, Bowie. That's been around for centuries. But it was something that he did say in one of his more popular songs from that era of glam rock that he was making in the 70s. So absolutely could be. And you said, and I didn't even know that he saw them, or he saw Bowie, right around the time that this album, the concept of this album was happening, and because he recorded all of this basically in December of 1987. this whole album essentially.
And he saw Bowie and invited Bowie to Paisley Park in October '87. So there's just a small time frame between that moment and the recording of this song. So who knows?
Yeah, certainly. And of course, recording dates are recording dates. That doesn't mean that's when the lyrics were written. He could have wrote them back in October for sure.
Absolutely.
So Glam Slam also has a lot of other, people can think of different other more common phrases that are used. So you have Glam Slam, which sounds very similar to Grand Slam.
Yeah.
Grand Slam is a sports phrase. I guess it's used in two different sports. So like you have the baseball connection where it's a bases loaded home run. It's a grand slam, meaning that's the most runs that you can score in any one play. In baseball's 4, and that's either a grand slam or some sort of bases loaded error that everybody scores. And then you've got the grand slam of tennis, which of course is winning all 4 major championships in the same year. And you got the Australian Open, the French Open, the U.S. Open, and Wimbledon. So it's kind of a play on that, I think, too.
No, absolutely.
What else do you see?
No, well, also talking about the baseball Grand Slam, in October 1987, the Minnesota Twins had 2 of those in the World Series, and that was the first time since 1970 that a Grand Slam was hit in the World Series, and both were by the Minnesota Twins, also in October. So that puts that sports event roughly about the same time as that Bowie concert we just talked about. So I'm of course not sure, but if a local sports team hits 2 Grand Slams in the World Series, Prince must have noticed that. So I'm pretty sure that might have influenced it as well.
Yeah, especially if it's his local team, for sure. I mean, he was a sports fan. We all know that he liked sports. Yeah. So you can't convince me that he wasn't paying attention to what the Minnesota Twins were doing in the World Series that year in '87. So totally makes sense. Yeah, I don't know how big of a tennis fan he was. I have no idea.
Well, he did visit Wimbledon in, I believe it was 2014.
Okay. I mean, we know he liked ping pong.
No, not Wimbledon. In Paris. What's the French Open?
French Open? Yeah. Okay. And we know he liked ping pong, and ping pong is just basically table tennis. So, I mean, it's basically the same sport, just doing it on a tiny little table instead of a big court. And he was pretty good at that.
Yeah.
So what else? We've got in Glam Slam, we already said kind of like the glam rock. We already mentioned that. We already mentioned Grand Slam. Another thing that I see in here and I've seen cited is the slam part. So slam is also can be short for slam dancing, or that was a style of dancing, basically like a precursor to moshing, where people just run into each other intentionally, bounce off of each other during upbeat rock music. I have no idea why that would be used in the title for this song. I don't know if it's intentional or if it's just a coincidence.
I think it might be a coincidence.
It might be. This one's a harder connection to make for sure.
Yeah, but he did start, but that's years later in the later 90s. Well, he never went as far as going to make rock music that people were slam dancing to, but in the later 90s when grunge got more popular, you did see him get rocking out a little bit harder. You see Maite doing stage dives and stuff like that, but it's all later. It's not in 1988.
Yeah,
87 exactly. In this case.
Yeah, and it's funny, there was a movie that was released in 1987 called Slam Dance. But it has nothing. It has nothing to do with the dance style. It's a thriller, like a crime thriller or erotic thriller. So I think it's just again a coincidence. It's probably I think there's more likely connections to Bowie and to sports, baseball, than the slam dance movement.
Yeah,
it wasn't
maybe
even
slam
that
dunk.
big of slam dunk. Sure, he liked basketball. Obviously, he was a fan of basketball. Yeah. And I think just pushing those two words together kind of at least gives to me like the impression of like this smashing success or something very beautiful and impressive. That's only visual. That's the main visual I get when I hear the words Glam Slam. Is just something very beautiful and impressive and successful. And I don't know. Did you see what kind of imagery do you get when you hear the words Glam Slam?
Well, exactly that. It's like, yeah, you have the glam. He's always throughout his career tried to connect the beautiful people, so to say. The people in Uptown, they are those beautiful people. The people in Paisley Park, whose hair on one side is swept back, etc. Those people are all glam. So that's what I see. I see those people. I see them gathering, um, and well, the slam part, I don't know, but that's definitely what I see. If I hear Glam Slam, apart from having that I really like the artwork of the two Love Sexy singles that were in transparent sleeves with just a sticker on it. That's something that I see. It's something translucent. I don't know why, but it's something that stuck in my head all these years. And like I said, I see those colorful people, those beautiful people who are glam in a way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So we basically have the same essential imagery. The glam seems to be more important in the phrase than the slam in terms of, I think, maybe what he's trying to say. I mean, they rhyme. It sounds cool. It's a new phrase that he coined. It's something that, I mean, he really did coin this phrase. There's no existence, to my understanding, of these two words used together prior to 1988, prior to Prince saying it. So if you ever see anybody say something as Glam Slam or I Glam Slam, you can thank Prince for that.
Yeah, that's the most interesting thing. Like you just mentioned, Love Sexy, the album was created in a very short amount of time. Yet he introduces a lot of phrases that would echo on for years. The first time we hear New Power Generation is on this album. The first time we hear Glam Slam is on this album, and he goes on to use it throughout the 1990s. And there's more like that. So there's a lot that he introduces here that would go on throughout the rest of his career.
Absolutely. That is one of the takeaways of the Love Sexy album, is this world building that Prince did around this time, and how it wasn't just for an album cycle. Like, it was, a lot of it took on a new life outside of this album after the fact.
Yeah, because it's like he literally brought his paint a perfect picture, bring to life a vision in one's mind, which is from another song. But it's definitely what he does here. He creates the world, the vision in one's mind right here, and then the Glam Slam first becomes a fictional nightclub in the Graffiti Bridge movie, and then it goes on to become a real nightclub in, like you said, in Minneapolis, in Los Angeles, Tokyo, in Miami. So he basically is doing what he was singing years before that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So with Glam Slam, so what is Prince trying to say in this song? So we've got, like I said, it's the third track. I Know is the opening song on the album, where he really is pushing the spiritual angle, introducing Spooky Electric, introducing the concept of Love Sexy, introducing New Power Soul, New Power Generation. It's a great opening track. It really sets the stage. Alphabet Street's the next song. Alphabet Street doesn't really push the narrative that much, or at all, really. There's a little bit in Cat's rap, but besides Cat's rap, it's mostly just a song about what we understand to be oral sex. So I mean, it doesn't have a great spiritual angle to it, spiritual bent to it. So now we move on to Glam Slam. And no, Alphabet Street's a great song, and Glam Slam is the next single. But for the second song in a row, I don't feel like this song really does a real good job of pushing it forth. Again, the Love Sexy narrative. He doesn't make any mentions of, I mean, he mentions in some ways, and this is where we'll start getting through the lyrics. I guess you could make some loose connections to the album's concept, but they really don't. They're not super strong, I don't think. I mean, just before we get into the lyrics, do you have any other comments on that, or do you agree with that assessment?
I agree what you're saying, and maybe that's a reason that the singles didn't do too well. Somehow, Oh, I Wish You Heaven was a good single to convey the concept of Love Sexy to the audience. But the other two singles, being Alphabet Street and this one, didn't do that. So singles, especially back in those days, were there to promote an album. And if the singles fail to convey the spirit of that particular album, then yeah, that's probably the first thing to pinpoint that why they failed.
Yeah.
But the thing also is that Love Sexy is supposed to be played as one song. You know, the CDs were pressed as one song.
Right.
So pulling singles from an album that's essentially one song is also a bit pointless, I guess. But yeah, but there had to be singles. It was the
there had to
80s,
be.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, there just had to be. There's no way he could.
But I think other songs would have made better single choices.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what Prince was really wanting. Like when I told the story about how on Princefall had said that he didn't want this to be the second single and was regretting the choice and wanted to have it changed. I'm curious as to what he would have changed it to. I wonder if it would have been I Know or something a little more in tune or aligned with the album's narrative. I'm not sure, but anyway.
I would have gone with I Know as a single, but that's just me.
Yeah, it would have made sense. It would have made sense. I think I Know would have made a great single because it does push the narrative. It does talk a little bit about the concepts, but it's not. I mean, it's upbeat and it's fun and it's funky. So those are the kind of the things that people like out of Prince's music in the 80s, especially.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start getting into the lyrics then. So we've got a few verses here and a chorus. So the first verse of the song is, "This thing we got, it's alive. It seems to transcend the physical. One touch and I'm satisfied. Must be a dream, it's so magical." Okay, so this first verse, I think it's just, I get a little bit of, sounds like a guy in love, basically, to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else do you see here, besides just somebody who's in love and he's just trying to, in a poetic way, describe that feeling?
Well, you know, you just mentioned the rap in Alphabet Street. It vaguely connects to that rap in my mind. You know, this thing we got is alive is what I believe essentially the feeling that is called Love Sexy. So that's why I thought it was weird to make this a single, because if you don't know what that feeling is because you haven't heard the album, it doesn't make sense at all. But the feeling he described as being love sexy is the feeling you get when you fall in love, not with a girl and a boy, but with a heavens above. So this man is clearly in love, and the feeling seems to transcend the physical. So that's also that feeling called love sexy.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, Glam Slam was recorded before Alphabet Street, or at least we believe it was recorded before Alphabet Street. So let's go with that. So even though that kind of they are kind of connected, initially these lyrics might have been about something else entirely. So I'm not really sure, but I totally get the feeling of a man being in love. That's one thing I take away from it as well.
Yeah, I mean, this first verse you can apply it to be like love of another person, another human being. You could even like take it to the spiritual angle and like this feeling, love sexy, of course, as you mentioned. Love sexy is not just about love of a person, but love of God. I mean, we have the love God phrase that was prevalent in the Love Sexy tour. It's present in this video. I think it's either on the stage itself or somewhere. I forget where the phrase love God is.
At one point, there's in the video, there's this point that you see. Those are the Game Boys, Tony M, Kirk, and Damon dancing on top of that stage in that video. They would be part of the New Power Generation years later, but they're dancing there, and at one point you see them like praying and taking a bow, and that's when the phrase "Love God," which is on the stage, is being highlighted in the video. So
gotcha. Yeah, I remember seeing it. I just couldn't remember at what point. But I think, yeah, the point I'm making with this first verse is you could apply it to either one, and it kind of makes sense. You could interchange the love of another person and the love of God here in verse 1, it could make sense.
Yeah.
Transcends the physical, so obviously a relationship with God wouldn't be a physical relationship. So when he says transcends physical, that makes sense. It's got to be a spiritual or mental kind of thing that's alive, something that's in him that makes him happy and he's overjoyed by experiencing. One touch, I'm satisfied. So you could take it to mean like one touch and I can have an orgasm if you're talking physical, but if you're talking on a different kind of relationship or different kind of attraction, then that touch
if you're
anything.
touched by the hand of God, you could be satisfied as well.
Yeah, it must be a dream. It's so magical. So he's giving us a little bit of food for thought here in terms of what this thing that he's got that makes sense in the context of the album, but outside of it, it's a little less clear.
Yeah, but if you consider the fact that at one point he had Ingrid Chavez at Paisley Park, that was the evening he decided to pull the Black Album, and then he went on to create Love Sexy. This might imply that more or less in the Graffiti Bridge movie as well, it might be about her.
Sure.
As far as I know, their relationship was mostly on a spiritual and intellectual level. So that also transcends the physical. So it's a far-fetched, but it might be inspired by that.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, his inspirations for these songs could be varied. Absolutely. It doesn't have to just be about God or about, because at this point, in his life, he's a 2 years or a year plus removed from his relationship with Susanna Melvoin. So he's looking for that next connection, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the chorus then after the first verse is Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am. You really make my day. Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am. I pray you'll always stay. So we've already kind of touched on the Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am, and what that's kind of a take on the Wham Bam, thank you, ma'am. I think most people think of that when they hear this song. It's like, oh, that's a clever little turn of phrase, changing it up and switching it up to make it very Prince-like, make it princely, less vulgar. Although Wham Bam, thank you, ma'am, I guess didn't even have our origins wasn't vulgar. It just kind of turned that way over time, just like how meanings of words can change over time. Originally, I guess it was meant to describe a quick kiss, something a little more chaste, just a quick grabbing a quick kiss when a man could with a woman, because usually in that direction. But then it turned into being more disgusting of a sexual nature. But then Prince changes that all here for the song. You really make my day. I pray you'll always stay. So there we got the word pray. So that gives us obvious connections to religion and spirituality.
Well, like you just mentioned, the Wham Bam, thank you, ma'am, is supposed to imply a quickie, get in and out and, no fuss, etc. But then he ends it with, I pray you always stay. And that's weird, because if this was about a quick fix, it would not be, he would not ask the person to stay.
Nope. That's basically the antithesis of a quickie.
Yeah. So, and what I find intriguing, and I think that's also maybe he just looked up the lyrics in a rhyme book or something. Like you mentioned, this album came together in a very short notice, and this chorus doesn't make sense if you look at the verse that came before it. You really make my day. I pray you always stay. Why? What did she do? Why did she make his day? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they are very simple rhymes. The rhyme pattern here is quite basic. Day and stay is used to rhyme, and I just get out of this chorus that even if you just take it on its own accord, he's Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for. He's like instead of thanking her for a quick sexual encounter, he's thanking her for being amazing, or thanking her for bringing light to his life, or offering something that he's never had before. This thing we got, it's alive. He's thanking her for that, basically. Like, I thank you for everything that you've provided to me in my life, this new light that you bring to me, and I hope that you'll always stay. I pray you'll always stay. And even if you're talking about this being a thing with God, like you take that angle and you're like, he's thanking God for being in his life. You really make my day. And I pray that you'll stay, meaning I pray that you are going to be, like, I pray to you, Jesus, I pray to you, God, and I hope that you'll always stay in my life.
That does make sense, because if this was an actual woman, you know, if you say pray, then she's already on the way out, you know.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to pray that somebody's going to stay. You have to, you got to do the work to get them to want to stay, not to just, I pray you'll always stay. I guess it's just maybe a way to say, like, I really enjoy this, where we're at, and I pray that it doesn't change, and maybe it doesn't mean literally. I'm not sure.
Well, there's this other thing of which I now think of. You know, we talked about the rap in Alphabet Street, and there in that rap we hear "Love Sexy is the glam of them all." So basically, we are having this woman in his life, or maybe it's God in his life, is both having that the glam of them all, that feeling called Love Sexy, and that home run we talked about. You know, so it could be a throwback to that part.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think just with the whole chorus is just a neat little rhyme that he liked, and I don't know if there's a whole lot of additional insight we can to glean out of it, but I think it's memorable, it's easy to recite, and it's catchy, I guess, and that's an important part of a chorus. I think is just making it simple and catchy. Yeah, and he did that.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you talk about my memories of that particular concert I went to, there are two distinctive things I remember. One, the entire audience singing "God is love, love is God," and the other is people really going wild in this chorus. They really, everybody around me was singing "Thank Glam Slam, thank you, man." That was the thing that. So that stuck out in that concert, and then in the end there was of course the hit medley with "Let's Go Crazy," "Nice Cry," "Purple Rain," etc. But this part was received almost as loud as the big hits.
Yeah, I mean, say what you want about the song "Glam Slam" and its lack of success, but that chorus is very catchy and easy to sing along to. Alphabet Street, as good as that song is, doesn't really have that same. I mean, the chorus to Alphabet Street is yeah, 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 yeah. That's the chorus to Alphabet Street, right? So he definitely took a different angle for this single and made a song with a catchy chorus for everybody to sing along to. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Don't take me wrong. Yeah. It's easy to sing along to as well. It just doesn't have any meaning.
The show I went to, he didn't even play Alphabet Street.
Okay.
which is weird, but
yeah, just didn't fit in with what he was trying to do, I guess.
I don't know, because he did do it in the Love Sexy show that was on the television a few weeks later. But the show I visited, he didn't perform it.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that was a lead single. Not to do it on this tour is a little different, an odd choice to make. Okay, anything else with the chorus before we move on to verse 2?
No, I don't. Okay. No.
Let's do it. All right. So then verse 2 is, I know I hold you too tight, but I just can't seem to get close enough. I want to hold you every night. I'm so horny and you're the stuff. All right. So the first verse and the chorus kind of go together, and you can make the connection between a person and God, and you can interchange them, and it makes sense. Absolutely. But verse 2 just doesn't do it for me in that way. I mean, I hold you too tight. I can't seem to get close enough. That I get that. That's like somebody wants to be close to somebody else, or even if it's God, you know, I don't know how he holds God tight unless he's just like holding God close to his chest and his heart. Yeah. I can't seem to get close enough to you, meaning it could be like physically close to you, or if it's spiritually praying all the time, or thinking about God all the time.
Chasing that that God, that the thought of an omnipresent God and connecting to that omnipresent God, that's and I think I'm an atheist, so but I grew up in a very religious family, and what I saw within that family is people always trying to reach God, not reach out to Him, but to reach Him, and that God can never be reached, at least
it's like
not from this earth.
it's like chasing a rainbow. You can't ever reach to the rainbow. It's literally impossible.
So I just can't seem to get close enough. Might be a reference to that. You can't get close enough because well that's the nature of religion.
Yeah, it's impossible to be closer than you are at that moment. You can try by praying more, and you can try by going to church more, or just thinking about God more, or whatever it is that you do. But you're thinking you're getting closer, but you're really not.
No, absolutely.
But that last line, "I'm so horny and you're the stuff." I'm sorry, you're going to say something, Edgar.
No, that I was exactly going to say just that. If you put the religion part in that, I just can't seem to get close enough line, then the "I'm so horny and you're the stuff," that doesn't make sense.
Nope. Horny for God, I guess.
Yeah.
No, this line just kind of like, come on. I mean, couldn't you come up with something a little more, I don't know, a little more clever or a little more unexpected? It just seems like a very expected line coming from Prince, because he had this reputation of being a horn dog and talking about sex all the time in his music, and this is supposed to be that album where he expresses maybe a different side of himself. And yes, there's sexuality in this song, or in this album. There's talk about sex and when two are in love, and other songs as well. But "I'm so horny," I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Just seems like lazy writing to me, but I'm not a musician.
And we also had a horny pony in the previous song, so it's like 2 songs, 2 times horny. It's too much.
It is. It just doesn't seem to fit the narrative of the song. It doesn't seem to fit the song, period.
No.
"I'm so horny and you're the stuff." So basically, I just get from that, I'm really horny and you're attractive, and you've got what I'm looking for. You've got.
Yeah. Oh, well, maybe there's that quickie again. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I guess. That's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah. And yet
otherwise he's just putting it in there because he's just trying to keep up with his horny pony attitude. The horny Prince that people seem to like and love of his music. Like, where is that? He's naked on the cover, so to a lot of people who are not listening to the album, they just see the cover, they think that he's just doing his overtly sexual Prince shtick.
Well, have you ever considered that cover might be a throwback to the way John the Baptist was presented in Renaissance paintings? It's almost identical, and which is funny because the picture is taken by Jean Baptiste, which means John the Baptist Bambino. So basically, Prince is being John the Baptist here, paving the way for Jesus. That's what the album cover is to me. I could be wrong, of course, but if you look at it from that way, and you take songs like Anastasia and stuff, that it does make sense that he would take on that role to convey this message.
Yeah, I know what photo what painting you're talking about. And if that is true, if that was the intention of Prince to kind of play on that a little bit, I think it was lost on a lot of people. I really do.
Yeah,
because he already had this reputation. He had this. He had Dirty Mind. He's practically naked on the cover of Dirty Mind. Mm-hmm. He has songs that are explicit in nature, songs that had helped generate the parental advisory.
Yeah.
Explicit lyrics, stickering, and labeling. So he had this reputation, and so to be naked on the cover and then to talk about being horny, I think maybe was just him playing up on that image still, but then trying to twist it, trying to turn it on its head, and like, yeah, you know what? This is what people are going to say about me. This is what people are going to think about me. But I've actually got other things in mind with this. This isn't I'm not trying to expose myself because I'm trying to be, explicit, or I'm trying to be provocative in a sexual way. I'm trying to get your attention to think about something else.
Yeah. But it could also be him coming full circle after 10 years, because on the inner sleeve of his debut album, he's also naked. There's the guitar to cover his to cover his private parts, but he's also naked there. So he was naked on his first album, and he's naked here again, 10 years on.
Yeah, but 10 years later, exactly.
Yeah, but it's all a different story.
Yeah, it's right. He's got a different message now than he did in 1978.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so anyway, that's the second verse. Second verse is a little different. It says some of the same things early on, and then it's got the line about him being horny, which kind of throws you for a loop a little bit. And then we get to the chorus. The chorus is identical. Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am. You really make my day. Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am. I pray you'll always stay. And then we get to like a musical breakdown with the third verse, as Prince's music and most music often does, is the chime of the song to kind of switch it up a little bit and make a musical change to keep the song interesting. And he definitely tries to make it interesting here with these lyrics. So I'm just going to read them. Here we go. Heavy feather, flick a nipple, baby scram, water ripple. And hear somebody say, I don't understand. It means I love you. Come a butterfly straight on your skin. You go for me and I come again. Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am. Sun is risen, moon is gone, soda fizzing on the lawn. Come a butterfly straight on your skin. Glam Slam. Okay. So I have no idea what he's really trying to say here. I mean, I can interpret maybe a couple of these lines as to mean something, but what is he actually trying to say here? I'm a little bit out of a loss. And you and I kind of talked beforehand, before starting to record, and just like scratching our heads with this third verse. So I'm going to open it up to you, Edgar, to start, to kind of, but we don't have to go line by line, but just in general, are there things out of this seemingly non sequitur stream of consciousness lyrics that he's got going on here that don't seem to make a lot of sense when you're reading them? Can you make any sense of what this third verse is, Edgar?
Well, we talked about this previously, indeed, but especially, I think he saw coming what we are doing right now, people not understanding what this means. And so he had someone at the I don't understand part right from the very start. Heavy feather, flick a nipple, baby scam, water ripple. And then we hear, I don't understand. And then he says, it means I love you. So this first part, heavy feather, flick a nipple, baby scam, water ripple, obviously means he loves her. But I really,
obviously.
Obviously, yes. But why a baby scam? What is a baby scam? Water ripple might be a bath. They're in a bath, like when two are in love. I don't understand.
Just imagine, because he says it means I love you. Imagine like we replace I love you in our lexicon with heavy feather, flick a nipple, baby scram, water ripple. Yeah. Like that's how people start saying I love you now. Can you imagine like in a world where we start saying those lines instead of I love you when we're saying goodbye to somebody or expressing love?
Can you imagine getting a Hallmark card? Heavy feather, flick a nipple.
And says, this means I love you, by the way, in case you weren't sure. Yeah, no, it seems like nonsense, right? I mean, it kind of feels like nonsense.
Yeah, but the part after that might refer to the whole pulling the Black Album and going straight into Love Sexy thing. Come butterfly straight on your skin. Butterfly is an insect that it is a caterpillar, and then out comes the butterfly, which is like a transformation. It signals rebirth, and so does the song coming up. He sings, sun is risen, moon is gone. So he's come out of that Black Album era and into the light as a butterfly, maybe, or into the sunshine. So that might be something, but I don't know. It's just me speculating.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I like that because my mind went completely different with the "come a butterfly straight on your skin." So if I'm reading that literally, what I get from that is imagery that Prince ejaculates on this person's skin and it looks like a butterfly. I mean, that's I'm sorry,
Well,
come a butterfly straight on your skin. That's what I hear. And I hope that's not what he meant, but that's what I hear.
Yeah, well, but that's where the soda fizzing on the lawn was what I thought was ejaculating on the lawn, you know?
So we
they're
may be
making out
right,
of,
we may be wrong, but this is, if he's putting these lyrics out and this is the kind of imagery that we're getting, then he's either doing that on purpose again to kind of play along with his dirty image, and the alternate lyrics, or different multiple meanings, euphemisms, things that he likes to do in his lyrics, or we're just completely off the mark and misinterpreting it entirely, which is also possible.
Maybe he's just having sex with a girl that has a butterfly tattoo, and he came on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a possibility, Edgar.
What we do know is that they probably have spent the night. The sun is risen, moon is gone. So
yeah, that one's pretty clear. That's a pretty clear, I think, a pretty clear lyric that you can interpret to mean they've spent the night, sun has risen, moon's gone. So, but where the soda fizzing on the lawn after that, I don't know. And then he repeats, "Come a butterfly straight on your skin," too.
That's weak. You starting a part, "Come butterfly straight on your skin," and then sing the rest, and then end with exactly the same line. I don't like that.
Yeah, this whole third verse, just, I mean, whatever. Their lines, their lyrics. I think you can enjoy the song without really understanding what he's saying here. It does feel like it's stream of consciousness lyric writing. Like he likes how things sound. But Prince never really been known to just put words together without a lot of thought behind it. So I just don't know if this is another outcome or result of having very little time to record an album and get it ready. I mean, these were his own deadlines. I mean, he had time. These were his own internal deadlines. I doubt Warner Brothers was like, "We really need another album from you 12 months after this double album you released." I'm sure it wasn't pressure from the record label, unless they were pissed off about the Black Album being pulled.
Yeah, and on the other hand, this was one of the first songs recorded for Lovesexy, so he could have gone back to it and do something else with it. And we know he did that with songs like "I Know," and the title track "Lovesexy" was first two different other tracks. So he could have come back to this and changed this. So why didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, so like I'm not a musician again, but the way I understand a lot of like music writing goes is sometimes you get a melody, sometimes you get like the general concept behind a song and how it's going to be presented, what the structure is going to sound like, and then you start just throwing in random words, just to kind of fill the space until you can flesh out the lyrics a little bit better. This feels like he did that and then never went back and like turned it into something logical or made any sense.
That might.
That's what it kind of feels like to me, at least.
That probably is.
Yeah, but usually people usually go back and fix that. But if he really felt like he didn't have time, he wanted to get, like, he was desperate to get this Lovesexy out, to get it out of his system, then maybe he's like, forget it. I don't have time to fix these lyrics. They are what they are. People just have to live with it. And
maybe that's the reason why he didn't want it as a single, because he listened it back. He was going, "What the hell is this?"
It's like, damn it! I knew I forgot to do something. I forgot to fix those third verse lyrics. Okay, so anything else we wanted to touch on with these lyrics in this third verse besides just our general confusion?
No, I really can't do anything with these lyrics, and a lot of time that's what I like about Prince. I can relate to lyrics he wrote by putting a situation from my own life in there, and I can't really hear it doesn't make sense.
Exactly. No, it doesn't. Okay, so then after that, we get the chorus again. Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am. You really make my day. Glam Slam, thank you, ma'am. I pray you'll always stay. And then he repeats the first verse again. So this thing we've got, it's alive. It seems to transcend the physical. One touch, and I'm satisfied. Must be a dream. It's so magical.
Yeah.
And then the chorus again. And the chorus is the same. Don't need to repeat that. And I guess, as the song has some. It's primarily like the outro is mostly music. There really isn't a lot of lyrics after he's done with these. After the bridge and after repeating the chorus a couple times and the first verse again, he does repeat, Glam Slam, you will always stay, you will always stay. And that's just a little bit of a change from how it's phrased, pray you'll always stay, you will always stay. That's the only thing of note that I mentioned with the outro. Everything else is pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm. So once again, lazy songwriting. We have to fill this. You know what? I'll throw in the very first verse once again.
Yeah, this isn't a very long song. It's only like 3.5 minutes, and that's with all 4 verses, with one of them being a repeated verse. Mm-hmm. There is a remix of this song, but there's no new lyrics with that remix. The remix is just music remix, so it's not even like one of those different versions like we got on. Like Shockadelica or some of his other 12-inch remixes like Girl from Around the World in a Day, where there's more lyrics added that, weren't on the 7-inch. This is just, a musical remix. The lyrics stay the same. So this wasn't a song that I think he felt like needed more lyrical oomph. It's not, in my opinion, it's not one of the strongest lyrical efforts on Lovesexy.
No, but he did reuse the Glam Slam theme within Escape, the B-side of this album, of this song. So yeah, and that also doesn't make sense, but that's a whole different story. But one thing that I really hadn't thought about until just a minute ago, he prays "You will always stay." That's the end. The end of the song is "Pray you will always stay," and then after that comes Anastasia. Have you ever been so lonely that you felt like you were the only one in the world? So the person obviously didn't stay.
Yeah, good point. Again, this is why this whole album I think why he felt like this whole album was more like a concept and it needs to be listened to together instead of in pieces, because it does make more sense in his, the way he tracked the album. Track listing really made it important and highlighted that a little bit more than it would have by itself. Like in a vacuum, Glam Slam seems to be kind of silly and kind of a fun, frivolous little pop rock number, and it still kind of just is, I guess, in general. Like between us, like before a song like Anastasia, which it does have a lot more spiritual meaning and explains the concept behind Lovesexy even more full. With the God is love, love is God refrain. But without that coming after that, like if you would have followed up Glam Slam with, I don't know, like I Wish You Heaven or When Two Are in Love, it would have felt like, that person that he's talking about so joyously in this song, that's the same person that he's talking about in these love songs later in the album. But that's not how the song is tracked or the album is tracked. So you got to take it a different way, like you suggested.
Yeah, but it is. He says one touch and I'm satisfied, and I'm not really satisfied by this song. I like I said, I like Lovesexy, and especially the ending of this song. It's just, I don't know, it leaves you.
Yeah, the song seems to be stronger for me from a musical standpoint than from a lyrical standpoint. I think the key takeaways and what makes this song interesting and kind of more than just a footnote in his career is the terminology created and presented here for the first time. I mean, Glam Slam, that phrase and how that was used much later or throughout the 90s, much of the 90s at least, is kind of like this song's lasting legacy, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beyond that, there isn't much else, I don't think, with the lyrics, but that whole Glam Slam phrase coming out of this song is its legacy.
maybe that's the one thing he liked, and that's the reason that he never really performed it anymore after the Love Sexy tour. But he basically retired the song the minute the tour was over.
Right, and he just repurposed the phrase Glam Slam for other things, like the Glam Slam 91 song, which was created to promote the nightclub opening. Because he didn't want to just keep replaying the song over and over to remind people that Glam Slam was an actual place that you could go visit. He had other songs now that he could use to promote that. Glam Slam Ulysses was something. It was a thing too. So I mean, he liked this phrase. He really did. He just maybe not so much the song, but he liked the phrase.
Yeah, it's probably the most used phrase in his career, next to New Power Generation.
Yeah,
and it originates here.
Certainly does, right here, 1988. Okay, so Edgar, do you have any other things you wanted to mention about the song? Any final thoughts?
Well, not really. I do like to mention that I have somewhat of a weak spot for this song because it's like the soundtrack of more than Alphabet Street. It is for me the soundtrack of that summer in 1988. I vividly remember getting the single, getting the 12-inch, going to see the show, getting a French copy of the single afterwards, which didn't have the translucent sleeve, but it had a picture sleeve with a photo that was actually taken in Rotterdam at one of the 3 shows he did there, and the concert I saw. So that was the whole package: the single, the 12-inch, the concert, and then that other single as well. That was and still is very special to me. So it's. The memory is great. The memory is better than the song. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Yeah. All right. Well, very cool. So where can people find what you're up to, Edgar?
Well, I'm currently rebuilding my Prince website, purplepix.net, which don't go there right now, but it should be ready within a few weeks. We had some issues there, so I decided to build it from the ground up. You can find me at my name on Twitter, and we are hosting a bunch of Prince Twitter threads there together with and you are one of our frequent guests as well. You can follow that by following the handle Prince Thread on Twitter. Where else can they find me? Well, that's basically it, I guess. That's the most important.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me, Edgar. I know you're 6 hours ahead of me, so whenever we can chat, it's always, a pleasure and benefit, I think, for me and the show to get, a European perspective, for some of this
6 hours ahead in the future.
Yeah, 6 hours. So what's it like in Sunday afternoon, Edgar? What's the world like?
It's dark outside now. It's 5 o'clock.
Oh, wow. It's evening now.
Yeah, it's evening.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much again. This has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the show Press Rewind Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, also now on YouTube. So check out the show on YouTube if you enjoy that platform. I try to put stuff on there that maybe you haven't heard before or haven't heard in a while. So check it out. And until next time, thank you, everyone, and goodbye.